And some people in this room may be aware that Judge Harold Baer, in a securities class action, issued an order that directed that the firm involved in the case make, quote unquote, every effort to assign at least one woman and one minority lawyer to the case. And if you're a reader of the legal blogs, which I became in organizing this panel, there was a lot of debate, which would take us the rest of the night to recount on the legal blogs about this topic. So, Judge Mazzarelli, if we're not talking about directing that there be women on every case or minorities on every case, what can judges do about this?
Well, I think we actually took the first step here by showing our concern. And in your last question, you talked about how a client wants or is perceived to want the more experienced lawyer, who in that example is the white-haired older man. But lawyers want to win, the client wants to win, everybody wants to have a successful case. And everyone therefore wants to have the best chance at having a successful case, so they want the best lawyers with the most experience. And as you said, experience begets experience. But, you know, I think that people are understanding now, lawyers are understanding, firms are understanding, clients are understanding, that the bench is not what it was 30 years ago. The bench has changed. And if you want to be able to know the judges, then you have to know who the judges are and how to communicate with them. And nobody here is going to say we should have a quota. As I said before, we want an equal opportunity, just as we as women lawyers who became judges wanted an equal opportunity to succeed in the judicial system. We want the lawyers who appear before us to succeed and have an equal opportunity. And, you know, the hardest job a judge has is when the lawyers are not good. The better the lawyers, the easier the job for the judge. So that's really, you know, what we can do. We can put pressure, as you, I forget who said, when they see a woman at council table, oh, it's so nice to see some women here. And I think we can be subtle about it, but I think we have to take a public stance as we have.
Excuse me. You know, I don't actually know what the blogging has been on Judge Baer's order because I didn't look at the blog. But I have to say something. If it is a question of defending what Judge Baer did, it seems to me that we should look at what the assumption is behind Judge Baer's order. And that is that women and minorities are fantastic lawyers. We're not talking about best qualified anymore. We have qualified minority lawyers. We have qualified women lawyers. That's not the question. So why don't you have women? Why don't you have minorities? And I think that that is something to take into account. It's not like you're window dressing. You have got incredibly deep benches, and you should be using them. In response to the comment about whether you should ask to do a case or something, it's not always all or nothing. When you have 5 or 6 attorneys sitting at counsel table and the case is going on for 2 or 3 months, I have seen examples where the lead attorney will give witnesses who are not on for 17 days to some of the other the associates. And this gives the associates an opportunity to show their stuff. And if the client is there to see it, that is great. But it also gives them the confidence and the experience. And is that particular witness or those 16 witnesses going to make or break the case? No. But it's going to make an impression on the jury. It's definitely going to make an impression on the judge. And it's going to give those younger attorneys an opportunity to show what they can do. This has happened in a case before me where another group of attorneys, 5 or 6 at the table, the lead partner never gave up anything, did everything from the most insignificant to the deal breaker or deal maker witness. And quite frankly, one of the things that I noticed, and I also know that the jury noticed, is that one of the associates who was with him, who happened to be a woman, and obviously knew all the stuff, was the one who was running up to him and giving him little notes and telling him what to do. And I mean, it's not clear to me that that made a positive impression on the jury. So it seems to me that when you have these huge cases that go on for long periods of time, you know, bringing along the other associates or the associates on the case, or even some of the junior partners on the case, I don't really know where they were rank-wise, is a good idea for you, for the firm, and a continuing relationship with the client. And in terms of the impact on the jury, I got to tell you, running up there every time and giving him notes and stuff like that. And, you know, when the jury wasn't there, I was asking her the questions, not him. So it is something that we should keep in mind, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
So I'm just going to take 1 second as the moderator to say that I recently saw a case in the First Department where it was clear to me that the woman who knew the most about the case was sitting in, there were 2 lawyers at counsel table, and they were both men, and then the woman was sitting in the audience, I guess on the side on the right, in the front row, massively taking notes. And then desperately, we have a pretty big well, and desperately trying, she was sort of like waving, hoping the man at second chair would notice her on the side. And then what? He's not going to get up from counsel table. And I sort of thought, now, why is that man there when the woman who's writing all the notes is out in the audience, unable to communicate at all with the person arguing the case? So we noticed that. So one of the things that I've heard from some law firms and litigation chairs, many of whom are here today, and we want to thank you for coming, is that clients are leaning on them about bills. And they don't want to bring 2 lawyers or 2 partners to every case, and women don't have the experience if they're only bringing 1 to be the person brought. So I'm going to ask our general counsel, if someone said that or thought that, what's the answer?
Look, Sandy and I both smile because we know we are very aggressively trying to manage costs. And so you don't want an anthill in the office and all of them assuming they should get a piece of the action. So you do very consciously wonder who the team is. But that goes back to the conversation that you have at the beginning of the case, which is, who is the team on the case? And so I find most miscommunication is just that people make assumptions or do things that you never intended because there is no dialogue about it. And so we are very deliberate again in saying, even in our retention policy, we don't mind if there are women who are part-time. We call it reduced hours. In fact, we want to know who they are. We don't care if they work on our matters. And so by signaling at the inception what it is you expect, you can avoid people saying, oh, I couldn't bring that woman with me. Well, if she was part of the team in the first place, you wouldn't have to ask me, would you? And so one of the things that I think Sandy would also echo this, I don't make most of the decisions about outside counsel. In fact, if it gets to me, it's a really bad thing. Most of the work is done by the lawyers on my staff. I have to empower them. And one of the things we hear from law firms, well, your lawyers won't let me do this. And so I work with the folks on the other side of the table, which are the in-house lawyers, saying, look for diversity. Don't be stupid. Don't have someone first chair a case when it's a bet the company case, but I don't have that many bet the company cases by design. So the majority of them are run-of-the-mill, and you say to them, be smart about how you're staffing it, but have the conversation up front.
I just want to add that, yeah, it's true. We have tight budgets to maintain, and in-house law departments are using fewer and fewer law firms, And part of what allows us to do that is we develop deep and close relationships with law firms. And I think part of that relationship building is making it clear to the law firm that you care about diversity and that you selected that law firm in part because of their embracing of diversity and having diverse attorneys work on your cases. And more of these arrangements of law firms nowadays aren't on a billable hour basis. So this I'm going to call it an excuse, but saying that I couldn't bring a woman lawyer along because, that would have caused you more hours. Well, many companies are now going by flat fee billing or other alternative fee arrangements where we don't really care how many lawyers work on the case. It's up to the law firm to staff the case appropriately, and one of the factors in staffing that case appropriately is making sure they have more women and more attorneys of color on those cases. So I just think that that's something that we should take into consideration. I don't find it acceptable to say I don't have more women working on your case because I want to save you money. It just doesn't fly.
We actually do a scorecard for the major firms, and we publish it every year, and we sit down and talk to them, and it shows utilization by gender, by ethnicity, and it's all broken out.
So I do need to do a time check. We got a little late start. I need someone in the corner to tell me if we run past 8 o'clock, will I be removed as moderator? Okay, thank you. Because I want to leave some time for questions, but I also want to have one or two more issues I'd like to cover for the panel. And those of you who need to leave before we're done, we understand. So even Judge Lippman started out his remarks in answer to tonight's question, where are the women, talking about parenting issues or family time, or I think in the euphemism, many demands on our schedules, in answer to what might account for that. So I'd like to ask anyone on the panel, is that the answer? Are we not seeing these women because you can't be a mom and a commercial litigator?
No. We see enormously successful commercial litigators who also have enormously demanding family lives everywhere, and the two pursuits are not in any way exclusive. It is exhausting to try to do all of those things, and it can be more exhausting at certain stages of life than at others. But I think the comment was made that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and in reality, life is long. So there may be stages in a woman's career where those demands are more intense, and then they get less intense, and the career goes on. There also obviously are enormous numbers of very talented women who don't have those exact commitments. There are enormously talented men who have similar commitments, and so I don't think we can take the easy way out and say that somehow that's the answer. I think it's one of the challenges that we face, and we may face it disproportionately, or we surely do, and therefore we need to address it disproportionately, but it's not why we're here.